Hi, everyone. This is Gary Berman, host of the Cyber Hero Adventure Show. We have an extremely special guest today who's on the leading edge of everything pertaining to um, this whole notion of large language models, small targeted language models. He's the CEO and founder of an amazing startup called Ask Say. So let's welcome to the show, Nick Chaillan. Hi, Nick. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. That's super excited.
And so am I, because everyone is talking about, AI, and AI is in every conversation. I'm not sure people have their heads around like what it actually means. So let's just start off, given your amazing background, in the Air Force and the Space Force and software development. How would you just sort of answer the question? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how much I think is going to change everything we know. I think when I look at the impact on my life, it's been more impactful than cloud and cell phones and smartphones and right.
Wow.
So it's going to really and that's probably because it's going to apply to every aspect of life, and everything we know will be powered or augmented, by AI, and particularly Gen AI. Right now, you hear a lot of noise, a lot of people kind of dismissing the results that we're seeing in the market. I think that's pretty short-sighted. I think they're going to be on the wrong side of history. And when you look at the velocity increase of people, particularly in coding, cyber, data analytics, we see acquisition, contracting, we see anywhere from a 35 to 50x increase of velocity of
Wow.
human.
Wow.
So, for someone to say that it's now going to be impacting jobs is completely delusional. And look, is it going to create new jobs? Sure. I don't know, though, if the new jobs pace is going to, be as fast as the loss
Oh,
of
right.
some of the jobs. And so that's
Right.
going to be something impactful for people, particularly the people that made fun of the blue collar jobs, because those are here to stay and not the non blue collar
Interesting.
jobs. So
Yeah.
I think there's going to be payback time.
Well, and also just on that sort of line of logic for a moment, just the sort of the intersection of kind of bits and atoms, like robots, and the use of artificial intelligence. And there have been some massive improvements about that, and starting to take over human tasks,
Right.
and so in that one, there are, let's use a sort of a Likert scale, 10-point Likert scale, where one, let's say, is not at all, and 10 is, completely. What number would you give, like, the role of AI in the future of civilization?
I think it's going to be finding solutions to problems we've been struggling with for, 50, 100 years plus. I think it's going to be accelerating everything we know. And it's going to be finding solutions to problems we think we cannot solve or we don't even know exist. So
Indeed, and
I would put it to a 9 or 10, I guess.
yeah, for sure. And just using sort of a similar, kind of a scale, you have people that are sort of, they're referred to as doomers, or, doomsday, like, this is all bad. But then you have people on the other side of that continuum, which is, we've been able to understand, 200 million proteins, in a very short period of time, and all the opportunities for well-being and health and things like that. Where are you, like, in terms of your optimism, versus sort of pessimism?
I think it's 50-50, right? Because I think there's arguments to be made on both sides. I think it's foolish to think something as impactful than this is not going to have a downside effect. We already see it in cyber and many different things. It's going to have an impact on jobs. That's why you hear people like, Sam Altman and others like Mark Zuckerberg, not a big fan of Mark, but the fact is saying that we need to think about, universal income and that's because they understand that many jobs will be impacted, and we need to find a way for these people to live. But we also, Sam has done a study where they gave free money to people for 3 years, and it was very clear from that study that people end up not innovating, not doing any kind of savings, and they just spend everything they're getting for free. And
Oh, interesting.
less entrepreneurs, like the ratio went down. It picked back up at the 2.5 year mark, which coming from France is exactly what you see when you have a country that's spoon feeding their citizens to a degree where you don't have motivation to do much anymore. And
Wow.
unemployment and stuff is so easy that you get 100% of your salary for 2 years, and then 70, it's like there's no motivation to go back to work, so and so all this stuff has massive terrible effect on people and their families, and no one is really talking about that. They're more talking about AI is going to show up on weapons and destroy the planet and take over the world. I don't think that's as likely. I think the real impact we're going to see on AI is going to be the job loss, and then the impact on that to those people. And then sure, it's a risk for AI to potentially go out of control. I mean, you see a lot of products coming out on the market that have very little security best practices. In fact, I would argue that security is probably the last thing on people's mind in AI,
Right.
of AI engineers. That's why we created Ask Sage. Security is baked in with Ask Sage and not bolted on after the fact. So I think, when you think about that kind of stuff, it's pretty clear to me that we need to do better when it comes to understanding the potential and the automation benefits of automating tasks. But then the more you automate tasks, the more the bot is able to take actions on behalf of the user. And tap APIs, websites. Now you have, with Anthropic, the bot moving your mouse and clicking on things and doing research for you when you're sleeping and all those great things. But that could be turned into, a malicious use case in seconds by bad actors, but also could potentially go wrong pretty quick without, some strong security left and right gates. So I think that's definitely a risk, and I think something's going to happen to wake people up. But we've been saying the same for cyber and critical infrastructure for 15 years at least. I have been raising the alarm when you see how the CCP in China is targeting and infiltrating the U.S. grid and water facilities and so on. So and yet nobody really cares, and then when there's a big cyber issue like we had a few years back, with the pipeline getting breached with ransomware, and we shut off the east supply of gasoline, and for 3 days, and the price went up and people were crying without gas, but then everybody moves on 2 days after, like nothing happened.
Yeah.
And nothing
Yeah, for sure.
on, right? So we always say there's going to be a Pearl Harbor moment for cyber, and I guess it's not coming. Or what's worse is people are getting used to their data being stolen, and
that's what it is. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
it's
for
become
everything.
the norm, right? So nobody cares. So it's
That's exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, people have become, numb to it. It's like, my data is out there already. And, there was just a big healthcare breach again this week.
Right.
And that information is extraordinarily valuable to criminals. So let me pull back just for a moment, and then we'll dive into, Ask Sage and the platform that you've created. So, you have a flag, an American flag behind you, on your website. You talk a lot about something that's very near and dear to my heart and to our audience for sure, national security. I do a lot of work in that area, lots of interviews with high-level people in government and Department of Defense and things like that. What is your assessment at the moment of the challenges associated with integrating AI throughout the defense industrial base, for example, the supply chain?
Yeah, so the defense industrial base is motivated by what the government asked them to do, and there's very few of these players that are proactive. And most of these charged by with contracts with time and material, and so they are not motivated to accelerate velocity of people. In fact, when we show them solutions that augment velocity of cybersecurity teams or coding teams or acquisition teams from 1 person to 35 or 40. They're like, well, that's great, but I'm going to lose revenue if I do something like this. So they don't have the motivation. They should still do it just to do the right thing for the taxpayer, but obviously they're driven by the profits. And so it's really up to the government to start asking for the right things for them to do. But the government has been, so far behind when it comes to really adopting this at scale. And worse, what you see is really the government competing and creating in-house made up, piece of junk really solutions, which creates a massive cost to the taxpayer, massive cost of sustainment, massive cost of really deployment and hosting, but worse, because those solutions are far inferior to what you can find on the commercial side. If airmen and guardians and service members try them out and they never actually try something else, they're going to be so disappointed, seeing 40% hallucination rate and it's unusable. I mean, it's useless, right? And so then they assume that generative AI and AI is useless. And so that's the worst you could have, right? Because not only you're now having the government using R&D labs to compete against, companies, which is illegal. But then you also have, service members getting used to this, poor quality product that is mandated to use. And then that leads to them giving up on AI altogether. And then you lose momentum. And oh, by the way, you end up killing the startups innovating in the space because money is not spent, and so it ends up killing the only viable options. And then you also lost all these service members that want to innovate because they don't have access to the right tools, and you end up with shadow IT and shadow AI and all that kind of stuff. So the whole thing, and so the DIB is in the middle of all that, trying to play ball to some degree. Some are forward leaning. We have quite a lot of defense industrial based companies. Usually, a couple of big ones, usually medium tier ones, because they know they have to compete and they have to have this unique, vision to do it. And many of them actually say the right things and do the right things by saying, hey, we're not just here to make profits. We're here to, bring value to the taxpayer and the war fighters. And so we're going to do the right thing when it comes to, using the tools to get things done faster and increase velocity of our teams and also give those tools to the war fighters. And so, it's kind of balanced. It's so far we're at least 2 years behind China. China has deployed they have their Beidou GPT stack across all fabric. And we've been fighting for 18 months to get this stuff on CUI Impact Level 5. It's a disgrace. That should have taken 2 months at best. If I was still in the building, it would have been done in a month. There was just no reason. There was just a lot of fear and nonsense and really incompetence. Really, that's what it came down to, of not understanding the actual risk, not understanding how this works. AI is software. It's not special. I mean, you need to understand it, but, we don't have to reinvent a bunch of policies. And so all these shops, the CDO's office was such a disaster with Task Force Lima, with zero value for the taxpayer, and the DoD with, millions spent on, useless paperweight, so that's not how we win. That's not how we innovate. These task force were supposed to remove impediments, get stuff done, get people in. And so, the hope with the new administration is going to be to completely go and disrupt all that.
Yeah, that's a really astute analysis. So let's drill down into what you said about being in the building. So maybe you can share with our audience about that and your roles, with the U.S. Air Force and Space Force and things like that.
Yeah, so I was the first chief software officer in the Air Force and Space Force, and Joint Staff as well. I brought the DevSecOps initiative to the department. I was leading cloud and DevSecOps and continuous delivery of value in software across the department. We created Cloud One and Platform One, which are still to this day the largest and best options for DevSecOps and cloud in the Department of Defense.
Wow.
And so, we did a lot of great, and we show that a very small amount of people can really impact change in a drastic way, with real money saved and increase of velocity, with jets and bombers and real weapon system, and not just, we see a lot of people come in DoD and say, oh, weapon is so hard, we're going to start with some business stuff. DoD is not here to do business. We're here to get the right tools to the warfighter to win the next battles. And so, weapons is the foundation of what we do, and deterrence as well. And so, for me, I focus right away on the right things, which I think is where the weapons got to be, and augmenting velocity of the software teams in F-22, B-21, F-35, and that kind of work, I think, is where we want to be. And we did, and I think the impact has been tremendous. I think there's still much more to do. Part of the big issue with DoD is too big and too well funded, and the waste is tremendous. Probably estimate the waste to be in the 80% range, which is insane. We're talking at least 700 billion of taxpayer money a year wasted down the drain.
Well, so on that point, forgive the interruption. On that point, so is it accurate or safe to assume that you would be generally in favor of the new approach, the Dodge Department of Government Efficiency? I mean, based on what you're saying, is it safe to assume that you would be a supporter of that, or?
Yeah, I'm helping as much as I can already. And I think there's a few people like me that know what needs to be done. And so I see them involved as well, which is great. I think the fear it's not a political thing. It's not left or right. It's really the frozen middle, and what some people call the swamp, which is real and it exists, and it's a real thing. Ready with people never held accountable, very tough to be able to fire somebody in the government, even when they did stuff pretty bad. I've seen it firsthand, and it's pretty concerning to see the waste and the fact that we keep giving more money to companies that fail to deliver. You would not see that on the commercial side, right? And that's because the DIB is such a self-sustaining bubble, right? I always joke that we have two bubbles in the U.S. We have the Silicon Valley bubble, and we have the DIB. And the Silicon Valley is I call it the kumbaya bubble. They refuse to engage with DoD most of the time. They live in this bubble of everybody is nice and we don't need any of that stuff, and we don't want to help DoD. Yet they have no issue often helping China.
Coincidentally,
right, and then you have the other side, right, with the complacency bubble, with DoD, where they just, there's no urgency, right, and it's just very slow pace, and I joke that when we send people to SpaceX, particularly Pentagon leaders for a couple of days at SpaceX, I always told them, if I leave you here for two weeks, your brain is going to implode. You can't take the velocity of what's going on here at SpaceX. Yeah.
I bumped into that bubble years ago, just after my company was hacked by APTs. My audience knows a tiny bit about that story. And so I became the executive director of a potential development called the Anthem Project. Our mission was to supplement the services that warfighters and their families receive upon returning from theater when they came back to the United States. And there's a tremendous amount of data, unfortunately, about the need. they only get
Sure.
8 days in the TAP program to come back after going through everything that they would
Go through, yeah.
have. And they're supposed to just sort of flip a switch and, oh, okay, I'll just go buy
Yeah,
groceries
nothing happened.
but
That's
that's,
crazy.
we're humans, we're not robots and stuff.
Nope.
So we worked very hard and came up with this really brilliant, strategy. And so I met with General Shinseki of the VA and other high level generals about this. And we did have congressional support from Florida, where I live, and things like that. And right when we were about to get the green light, the head of the local VA where I live killed it. And he did it like behind the scenes. I didn't know. All we were hearing was good things. And it turns out it threatened him, because what we were doing is so novel and so good and would be so beneficial. It would just make him look bad. So that was my one in-person, sort of interaction with the bubble, so to speak.
Yeah, that's pretty sad. It's you see it rarely when people go as far as doing what's bad for the wolffighter, and really literally doing the opposite of what their job is supposed to be. You see it, but you see also just a frozen middle, just do nothing. But you have a lot of no people instead of yes if, and I like the yes if answer better, or yes but but the no people, I learned to push them away as fast as I could and identify them.
I mean,
to get
the
it
only
done.
the only people that like change are babies with wet diapers. I mean, because it's fraught with risk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's a culture thing. It's also, the more you're doing it, the less annoying it gets, right? But people that are not used to it and got used to the day to day, that gets scary. But if you go to SpaceX, they innovate so much every day. They don't even think of it anymore, right? So it doesn't become as painful. So I think it's like a muscle. You need to exercise it.
Wow, that's a really good analysis. So, you mentioned, that you left the building. Can you share with our audience what caused you to leave, and why you've begun Ask Sage?
Yeah, so I was working under the Trump administration, and then I stayed a little bit with the Biden administration. I think there was a few things that drove me to leave. One is it was a 3-year term, and I was getting at the end of my term. I could have extended, but I do think it's healthy for people like me that come from the commercial sector to come in and not stay too long, because I was becoming myself used to the lack of velocity, and I was even adjusting my own expectations because I knew right. So that starts to mess up your own brain, and you become part of the problem. So I think it's actually pretty healthy to have a healthy turnover and come back and come and go, right? That's why I think the reserve is pretty cool. And so I think it was a great thing to do. But I was also getting frustrated with the new appointees. With the Biden administration really pushing, DEI instead of competency, and particularly in critical jobs. And I couldn't care less about race. In France, we don't even think about it. And I think we lead the way in being open and not even care about race or color or whatever, right? But it was the only thing they were talking about, and that's not healthy as well, right? I think it's actually very unhealthy. I wish we didn't have to talk about it at all. But like insisting on that and using that as a primary source of selection is not smart, particularly for critical DoD roles. We're talking, undersecretary levels and, top tier people leading, billions of funding that really had no clue about much of anything. And so when I started to realize I would have to start back from zero and lose all the progress we made in 3 years, it was very frustrating. And then and so you would, during the Trump administration, you would hear the appointees say the right thing, sometimes do it, not often. Good talkers, not a lot of walking the walk. So a little frustrating too, right? and they would say it, and then when it's time to sign the thing and do it, it's like, oh, I don't know. But then what's worse is with and so I heard good things for 4 years, and but no action or very little action. And then with the Biden administration that came in, something worse happened, which I didn't think could happen, which was I started to hear the wrong things, and they were taking actions on those wrong things. And so that's worse than saying the right things and not doing it.
Wow.
And so that was enough for me to say it's probably time for me to raise awareness on what was going on. So I did a little resignation letter that was the most viewed letter apparently in the history of DoD, translated in 150 languages and whatnot. And that made quite a bit of noise, which led to a lot of great changes by showing how far behind we're getting in hypersonics and cloud and quantum compute and AI and a lot of different things where, the department used to say, and called China a near peer adversary, and, they were catching up, and then they started to admit the truth, which is China was leading in those fields, which really were the next tools to win the next battles. And without it, you would lose. And so now they finally call them a peer adversary, and right. So they stop the nonsense of like trying to effectively hide that China was taking us over in many of these fields.
I had the privilege of interviewing two authors of a book entitled Battlefield Cyber. And the reason I decided to interview them is because the cover of the book had a hand grenade, but the little bumps around the hand grenade were a keyboard. It was a computer keyboard.
Yeah.
Which, I thought that's a pretty ingenious, visual. And so a guy named McLaughlin and another guy named Holstein. And McLaughlin at the time was one of the leading authorities on cybersecurity in Russia for the White House, or some department of government. I think it was the White House. And the other guy was a former editor of Associated Press, who is a renowned expert on China and cybersecurity. And I did this the first interview with them, I guess maybe about 3 years ago, about the geopolitical implications of cybersecurity, and everything that these guys were talking about has come true and then some. It manifests to the war fighters in Ukraine, for sure. And China or PRC in all of our stuff. And it was just announced a couple weeks ago they're in all of our telecommunications, or not all of them.
Which we disclosed back in 2017 when I was at DHS, and no one listened to us. So, there's that.
What can you tell me about the letter that you wrote, and can you send a copy of the letter, because I'll find a way to put a link to it. I guess it's online.
I'll send you the link. Yeah,
it's not confidential. Right?
No, it's public on LinkedIn and everything. It's called I think it's time to say goodbye. So that was a little dramatic. But I think when people read it, I think most people agree to everything I said. They may not like the fact that I went public to say it, and a lot of people say, you should have kept it in the family. And I tell those people the family are the American people, and you're wrong to think otherwise. And and that's part of the problem. I think we overclassify everything. We hide a lot of things that shouldn't be hidden to the taxpayer and the citizens, and I think that people are forgetting who we're working for, and I think that should be the cornerstone of what we do.
Indeed. And, so the platform, Sage, how did you come up with the name?
Jenny, I came up with it like everything else we do in this company. The logo, we created the first company ready, worth $100 million in 18 months. Wow. That is driven and what's built by Gen AI. We were two people at the time, me and my wife, and now we're more people. But we demonstrated how Gen AI can build a business, from legal to marketing to logo to the product itself. 90% of the code of AskSage is built by AskSage. We show that that's going to completely disrupt and enable entrepreneurs to get stuff done in a way that nobody thought you could. You have this expert in every field sitting next to you, where you can orchestrate and discuss and get to outcomes in minutes that would have taken years. So our logo, our name, everything was actually driven.
Well, I saw your logo has a little. It has a little space character, like right.
Yeah, we have
I do.
a space girl and space owl. Yeah.
So one of the things that I was mentioning to you, I said, hey, after we, stop the official recording, I'd like to just spend a few minutes because I have, an idea. And so I'll just put it out there now because I'm a yes and person, which my wife thinks I'm nuts, but
no, you're right.
But when I saw your logo, I laughed. I said, oh, he's got, like a little space person or spaceman or whatever. And so, I do superhero comics, the cyberhero adventures, defenders of the digital universe. So I want to collaborate with you on the first ever Gen AI comic or animation.
That's a great idea. I love it. Let's do. Funny enough, we have such a tough time with training, right? And a lot of people struggle, and it's very difficult. Gen AI, we have a 12-hour course, and no one spend the time, and they would rather watch TikTok videos, unfortunately, right? And so we were thinking, like, what could we do to make the learning more exciting, and also for kids and also for adults, right? And so that's just a great idea. So I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah, great. I'm so happy to hear that, because I have found what you're saying to be the case, that it's not just for the kids, it's also for the inner child of adults.
Oh, yes. Yeah, for sure.
Just the way people learn and the way our synapses.
Easier to learn and more fun, and
well, they want stories.
Make it more fun.
Yeah, see, the way you speak now, I find fantastic. It's very easy to understand you. It's very easy to follow your micro stories, to emphasize a certain point. And that's one of the cool things that comics and animations can do, because a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Right.
And with AI, maybe a picture's worth 1,000,000 words. Who knows?
You can even add the story and maybe some of the images generated by Gen AI nowadays, and do it in half the time. So,
yeah, and have more fun.
Yeah, more fun. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and that's where the learning is so important, right? Because we don't want to leave people behind. The people that are putting their hand in the sand and hoping it's going to go away are going to be the first one to lose their job, and that makes me upset. And I feel like I'm failing at doing my job to educate the market and people. So.
Yeah, well, you're doing a good job, that's for sure. So the platform itself, I took a look at your website. What is the website, just so we can make sure that
Stage.ai.
Okay, easy peasy.
Yeah, easy peasy.
Yeah, everything with me, I like easy peasy. That's the thing with me. You'll, as you get to know me, you'll hear me. I do say that.
It makes sense.
And I try to act that way.
Right.
So you have a bunch of great YouTube videos on your website that describe pretty concisely the various use cases for it, and so just as an example of that, maybe you can describe how the cybersecurity use case that you're using just as a demonstration could help with completing compliance requirements, that link to frameworks like NIST and things like that. Maybe you can just explain briefly about that, because our audience would be, I think, particularly interested in.
Yeah, it's insane. In cyber, there's so many use cases and how you can use the product. It changed my life on a day-to-day basis. We're the first company to be able to get FedRAMP High ATO and DoD Impact Level 5 ATO, in 7 months. 2,500.
I saw that's unbelievable. I saw the logos on the bottom of your website.
And cost me $2,500 to do the entire package. A 3PAO company that does these packages usually is going to charge you $300,000 to do it. It takes about 6 months. We did it in 2 weeks with Asage with 97% accuracy. 1 week to generate it, 1 week to read it. So it took longer to read it than to write it. 4,000 pages generated. It's just a game changer. So we have these products now, on Asage and on the same license called ATO in a box, CMMC in a box, FedRAMP in a box, and even acquisition in a box to respond to bids. And by the way, I went from 5 days to respond to a government bid down to 32 minutes with that.
Wow.
So,
And let me ask
every
you
aspect
something.
yeah.
Forgive the interruption. I just want to understand one point about that.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to figure out like some kind of regulatory regime, for AI and things like that, and that's just as you know, all over the place. So, are there DoD regulatory requirements to disclose that the process that you followed to complete that?
No.
Wow.
I mean, at the end of the day, the AI generate the stuff, you read it, and it's just like if someone did a draft and then you have somebody else checking everything. You don't want to just trust it, right? You want to read it and make sure it's factual, but it's going to save you a whole bunch of time. And
so you don't have to have any kind of watermark or disclosure.
I mean, why would you need to do that, right? Number one,
I don't know.
Look, I'm not saying that a lot of people don't think that should be the case. I think it's silly, right? Because two reasons. One is, when you have someone writing a book with someone to write it for you, you're not disclosing that most of the time, right? So you have that writer writing the stuff and you're not disclosing that. So that happens all the time, right? Having AI to write some of your stuff. All my LinkedIn posts are written by AI, but it's based on my tone, and I trained it to know me, and it even talks with a French accent and stuff. So, I mean, it's just I think as long as humans check the output and then approve it, then it's the same as if I use an intern to write the stuff and then finish it, right? So I don't really see the point. It's not like this magical, shady thing, right? And the reason why I insist on this is that goes to that lack of understanding of Gen AI, and that scares me because that leads to overregulation, like you see in Europe. You can't do anything in Europe anymore. It's insanity, right? In the UK, you get arrested if you make fun on social media. So I think you have we're in America. I like to stay in America.
So a specific use case, then you're just triggered in my brain. So I had begun writing a book a little bit about my sort of journey from victim to advocate,
right?
And the process that I had followed was really just random thoughts of a cluttered mind. I mean, I would dictate into my iPhone and then transcribe it, just random thoughts. It was never designed for anyone to read them or review them. Right. Are you saying that I could use Ask AI and it's 60,000 words, so I don't know how many tokens that would be, but would I be able to use Ask AI to help me write the book?
You could. I mean, you could do Ask Sage and in a day. I mean, we know people that wrote books on Ask Sage in a day.
Wow.
It cost them maybe $90. So I mean,
wow.
It's the cost.
I looked into. Well, that's an interesting. Maybe we should do this as like a little case study also, because I this was a while ago, but I went on a marketplace called Fiverr, which is like a gig marketplace you're probably familiar with. Yeah. And I went through all kinds of scrutiny to find a person, and she charged me $15,000 to be a ghostwriter.
Yep.
Are you saying I could do this like for less than that?
You're probably for $90. And I would actually.
I'm going to do something. Wait, I have to show you something. I'm going to do something I don't normally do.
Well, yeah, but
I do that for other recordings. I have Batman graphics and stuff like that.
I think you're gonna be shocked also by the fact that it's gonna sound more like you if you train it and you create a persona on that stage. You can train it with your existing tone and the way you write, and you don't need a whole bunch of examples. You give maybe 2 or 3 pages of content, and then literally the bot can write the whole thing and sound just like you, and probably better than a ghostwriter could be able to do it in a day. I mean, you're talking, I don't know how long the ghostwriter would take, but you could do it in a day. So
That's nuts. Okay, so let's do something. What should we type in here?
Well, number one, if you want to do it right, again, there's ways to still get some good results. But you see on the little Ask Sage round button there, no, not this one. The next to GPT Auto, and the bottom in the middle, I guess.
Oh,
Yeah.
prompt.
Next, no, Ask Sage, the one to the left. Yeah, click on that. So that's a persona, right? So that's super powerful because you can customize the tone and the style, and so you can create your own persona. By default, we have a whole bunch of them. For contracting officer and DevSecOps and cyber, and but at the top you can create your own persona, and that lets
All right,
you.
so we're going to do the cyber one.
Yeah. So I mean, you can ask anything. I don't know what you want to ask, but sky's the limit.
Okay, so what is the optimal scenario to prevent, a cyber attack?
It's pretty broad, but whatever. We'll see what it says.
And so, how is this different than the existing LLMs?
Well, you have the ability to train your data. You have the ability to tap 150 models. So you're not getting locked into, OpenAI, Google, or Microsoft, right? So you have all the diversity of options. So you get references, you get, see those links. And so we train it also on DevSecOps and a lot of DoD content and a lot of different things. So, there's just a lot of different things we do to make it more factual, and then you have plugins, right? You can tap into databases. So like for cyber, you could tap an API, you could go and, do all that kind of stuff live. With live data, tap a CV scanner, tap a cloud API and all that kind of stuff. So, and it's running on the Gov fabric, so it's more secure, and that's why it's a little bit slower, compared to some of the commercial solutions, although not that much slower because it's still seconds. But it is running on the Gov hardened fabric, so. Even for companies, gives you more privacy and more security. So, and of course, if you had to give more context, right? Your questions were pretty broad and open-ended. If you create a persona and you train on what your company does and who you are and what you're doing as a business, for me, Ask Sage knows about Ask Sage and knows what we do and how many people we have and all that kind of stuff, right? It's kind of already trained. You could train Ask Sage with your one pagers and PowerPoints and whatever else you got, and it would be able to write that for you. So it's just endless. And then we have In the Box, which is this separate product, right, for ATOs and CMMC and FedRAMP, and that helps you write your entire ATO package in a week. So saving about $300,000 for companies to do that. So, it's kind of insane. And then the more you use it, and I use it for everything, every decision I make in the business, hiring, what to hire, where to invest, what should we do, what's next, it becomes kind of your chief of staff on steroids. It's kind of crazy. So the creative writer could be 1%, but for you would actually create a Gary persona, and you would give it maybe some example of your style and how you write. If you have already published some op-eds or whatever, right, you could use that, and then you would be able to train it to use that language. And sky is the limit then, because you could give it your context. It could create your table of content, do the different chapters for you, and within a box, you can actually do that completely automatically. And the bot, you give the synopsis of the book. The bot will write the different chapters and then iteratively write each chapter for you, and then give you a Word document with the entire 1,000 pages book completely written. So it's pretty amazing. You have the free version here. So if you click on the Open Mermaid, if you had the pay version, it would have actually created an image for you, but you're on the free tier, so you won't be able to see it. If you had the paid version, you would be able to create images.
So this is interesting to me. So this is essentially it's like it's like a mind map.
Yeah, you can do mind maps. So we use Mermaid. So Mermaid can do like user stories and mind maps and Gantt shots, and sky's the limit. You have to give it more context. You didn't give it enough, like
right.
what's going on. And you use a free version there. The paid version has more features. Start at $15 a month, right? 15. So super cheap, it's I mean, you changed my life on a day-to-day basis. And so we wanted to bring it to the Warfighter because we knew that if we didn't, they would be stuck in time, 5 years, 6 years behind with outdated technology. And so we were the first one to bring it. We have about 40,000 DoD users. That made us the largest AI product in DoD. So it's pretty cool.
Wow. And it's is it accurate to assume then it's all approved? This would not be like shadow software.
Yeah. That's we went through DoD Impact Level 5 and FedRAMP High ATO, and and companies, for CMMC, we're fully compliant. So we have about 2,500 companies using it.
Yeah, they're like, boy, I have a lot of experience in that in CMMC. We talk to you offline, but there are 309,000 SMBs.
Yeah.
So who's your target market? I mean, we're talking all about big enterprise, but what about all the SMBs who are?
We have a lot, but we only have 2,500. So like you said, there's plenty of room to grow, but we're only 18 months old, so I guess it's not too bad. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the entire DIB could use this to respond to bids, do their cyber stuff, contracts, coding, cyber. I mean, sky's the limit. So we're doubling down on the DIB. We got Army, Navy, Air Force using the product. We got 27 agencies now using the product. So we want to expand more and more on the DIB side. That's just we're the only approved solution already, but most people don't even know what you can do. So it's pretty more about knowledge and lack of awareness than it is anything else.
Coincidentally, a friend of mine, his name is General Greg Toohill. He's a retired Air Force.
Very well. He was on my show as well. So Greg is.
You know him?
Of course.
Oh, okay. So if you want to vet me, like, who is this guy with comics? Just ask General Toohill. No, seriously, ask him about me. You'll see what he says. In fact, I just did an interview with one of his people on insider threats from U.S. CERT at Carnegie Mellon.
Right.
And the reason I bring him up is because many years ago, really quite coincidentally, we sort of hit it off with one another about our mutual love of comics. And I realized, or he went on to tell me, that he used comics extensively to train people in the Air Force on things like batteries and just sort of mundane things. He wanted to make them exciting and engaging and interesting. Sure. So he was using comics long before it came in my brain. And so, I consider him a mentor, and I've interviewed him several times on my show. He is great,
for sure.
Yeah, and he's the nicest guy too.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I've noticed in my experience, that people like you you're humble generally, you're nice, you're in service of something greater than yourself. And that's super meaningful to me. And I appreciate it. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, let me ask you about the economic model. So you had mentioned, just a couple of figures, like $15 a month, but what is the economic model for you?
Yeah, we charge usually by volume of content. So, all AI models use tokens. A token is 3.7 English characters. So think of it as back in the day, the cell phone plans where you had to pay by the minute. Same concept, except you're paying text, which is, the way it is, because that's what it costs in GPUs to write the stuff, right? And so you're paying by volume of text. And we have user plans for people that just 1 or 2 users, but then we have enterprise plans where you buy the tokens in volume. So $90 a month, you get 2 million tokens, and then you can spread it on people. So if you have 10 users, you can fit it on 10 users and cap their consumption, so they don't overspend.
So if you have something, forgive the interruption. So let's say I'm just going to be self-centered for a moment. Let's say my book. So it's 60,000 words. I don't know how many letters that is, but like your system.
The average is full character. So 60,000. So it's times 5, 300,000 characters divided by 3.7, 80,000 tokens. That's like $15.
Wow, that's crazy. And so there's no limit. It just depends on the plan that someone would buy.
Yeah, you cap your plan so you don't overspend, right?
Right. So
So you control, and then you can buy more when you run out. And
wow.
For a book, I mean, if you spend $90, is you're doing wrong.
That's unbelievable. And great news. You helped me with the real bottleneck. So thank you.
We have people on the platform literally writing books like once a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't know, where that's going to lead when it comes to. I think the quality of the book is very good. I can't tell the difference, but I don't know what's going to happen to the book industry. I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Because there's such a thing of being bombarded with too much too, right?
Well, I interviewed a couple weeks ago. I happened to be at a book fair, and I interviewed 2 big authors. And one of the questions I asked was that I said, so, now with the advent of AI and scraping the internet and copyright and all that stuff, what I asked one of the guys, a prolific guy for Disney, so what do you think about it? And he went like this, and he rubbed his head, and he said, well, I got a list of what one of the LLMs was used to train this, about books and stuff, and that it had taken 16 of his books.
Yeah.
And the audience was just like, you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
What is that? I mean, how do creators create and get compensated for it, or is that just not going to happen anymore, or a different way?
It is a problem. I don't think they have the answers, but I think that they're talking about it, and I think it's not going to be easy. And it goes both ways. I mean, what would a book be worth now if you can do it in a day, and with Gen AI, and so it goes both ways, right? But certainly going to be a huge disruption in many. That's just one of many fields. Coding is even worse, right? So code is, we generate about $500,000 of code for $250 a month.
Wow.
Right. So it's probably worse than the book stuff.
So what would you advise? It sort of used to be, prior to a couple of years ago with Transformer, that you would tell a young person, oh, you have to learn how to code, for your career.
Yeah.
What is that sentence now?
I think you have to understand how to orchestrate LLMs and how to be the orchestrator of your destiny and go beyond what you can do as a human, by using Gen AI to augment your knowledge and do things that you thought you couldn't do by yourself, that now you can do without paying somebody else to help you. So it's
one of the things.
orchestration.
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up, you still have a couple minutes. Are you okay?
I have 1 minute. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let's wrap up by saying, how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, the easiest, I guess, is to reach out to us on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn as well, but also, just on the website on AskSage.ai, they can reach out there. But LinkedIn is where we hang out, so that's also a great option.
Okay, perfect. Well, on behalf of a grateful digital universe, Nick Chaillan, thank you so much for who you are and for what you do and why you do it. And I'll also extend gratitude to your partner, your better half,
Yeah.
your wife, who probably actually does all the work, right?
Yeah.
How do you divide that up? Like
Yeah, she's a
what
COO, so she deals with all the people and the nightmare of that, and I try to focus on
nightmare?
the business and the tech. I'm a tech guy, so
All right. Well, thank you so much. Did you have fun in this interview?
yeah, it was great. No, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Good. You're welcome. Okay, and to our audience, stay tuned for more from the Cyber Hero Adventure Show.